Hey guys, it's Celestia, and because life is depressing and I wanted something to laugh about, and also because you guys requested it, today we're going back to r/DelusionalArtists. When I did the first video, I asked if you guys wanted me to make it a series, and since the response was largely a resounding yes, I've been compiling months worth of gems to show you in today's part 2, which will inevitably continue in another couple months. But before I share all of my unique finds with you, let me thank today's sponsor. I know some of you guys hate these and are also inexplicably unable to skip to the timestamps I put on screen without yelling at me in the comments, so I'll try to keep it shorter, and here's the timestamp anyway for those of you who are kindly willing to skip to it if you're not interested. Now, you guys might remember Wingfox from multiple prior videos of mine that they sponsored, and I'll link the most recent one in the card on screen because I go into a lot more detail about why I find their platform so valuable compared to their competitors in that one. But basically, they're an online learning platform dedicated to art of any and all kinds, and they offer a plethora of detailed courses taught by industry leaders with hours upon hours of content in each one. Like, mind-blowingly so. They've allowed me to try out yet another one this month called Drawing the Human Figure with Basic Shapes, and it's one that I would recommend to beginners and experts alike, especially those of you who struggle to draw anything outside of your preferred subject matter or comfort zone, because it basically breaks down every aspect of art into easily understood and replicated aspects. Essentially, the course explains that drawing parts of your art exclusively by looking at a 2D reference means that if you need to draw it at a different angle or perspective, you'll need to find a whole new reference. But by breaking down anything from an item to the human form into basic 3D shapes, you can gain a better understanding of how it looks and why it looks that way, subsequently allowing you to draw it from any angle. You know how when you draw something a lot, you start automatically getting better at drawing it and taking less time to do so with less reference, without really thinking about it? That's at least partially because your brain starts to recognize the shapes that make up that thing and puts them together more naturally and accurately. This course will teach you how to do that for anything, not just the things you're good at, and I cannot recommend it enough. Thank you to Wingfox for sponsoring this video, and it was a pleasure as always to get to try out another shockingly in-depth course from them, because I always feel like I've learned something tangible and new. If you'd like to go check out this course, you can get 15% off with coupon code WFF15 via the links in the description, so please look into it yourselves if you're interested. Alright, so that aside, let's get on to the shit show, because it is a shit show. For anyone who isn't familiar and doesn't feel like going back to my first video on it for context, I mean, first of all, your loss. That video is home to the likes of Doobage Bear and Cheetos Cup, and that's obviously not the kind of content you want to miss. But if that's not enough to tempt you, here's a very quick summary. r/DelusionalArtists is a subreddit dedicated to effectively mocking either bad art that's overpriced, or, most frequently, art that's both. A lot of it also happens to be a bunch of assholes taking gigantic anonymous shits on average normal art that the majority of them couldn't make themselves. And this video series is not for those posts. I'm not interested in insulting beginner artists or just any artists that haven't perfected their skills yet but are still clearly trying their best. I'm here to be fucking appalled by the audacity of some dumbass trying to sell a half-eaten can of tuna as a modern art installment for $950, and make sure that all of you have to see it too, so I don't have to suffer alone. And that's exactly what we're about to do, so prepare for art. Or at least something vaguely reminiscent of it.
If you would like to purchase this painting for $28,000, I can be contacted at ratfuckgocheckyourself.gov.
Starting strong, let me bring your attention to one of my favorite masterpieces that you'll be seeing today. Cheerios coasters. First of all, the first iteration of a question I'll be asking a lot in this video. How did this occur to someone as not only a piece of art, but as a lucrative business endeavor? How did someone sit down and think, God, I sure hope the condensation on my glass doesn't get on my table. I know, I'll stop it from doing so with a cereal that literally exists to be absorbent of liquid. What could go wrong? And then followed that thought up with, genius, this is something to market to the masses. Even if they're completely covered in superglue to the point that they won't absorb anything, I still don't know how they thought this was a good idea to make a coaster out of. Like, of all things, it's unstable. The singular purpose of a coaster is to keep liquid off of a damageable surface and keep a glass steady, and this does neither. I understand that this person clearly had a box of expired Cheerios and decided to try to profit off of their failure to eat it in time by cutting it up and gluing the contents together, but of all the things to make with it, I just these coasters? And to go from the $0 value of an expired box of Cheerios to selling the remnants of it for $25 each or $75 for all of them, when half of them aren't even fully covered in Cheerios at all. Capitalism, man. I also have to acknowledge the item's description because first off, the artist says, and I quote, "I made these myself and I am proud of them." I'm sorry, is the implication here that were it not for that statement, people would have thought that these weren't handmade, but were rather mass-produced? Fuck, that's news to me. I was convinced that Bed Bath & Beyond was responsible for supergluing $5 cereal to poorly cut out circles of what I imagine to be a flipped-over Cheerios box. Thanks for the heads up. But what gets me even more is that they followed that up with "great for any occasion," and I can't even say that with a straight face while I'm looking at these coasters because I can literally only think of one occasion I would ever consider using these for, and it's to gift to like a weevil or an enemy or maybe a really hungry, desperate bird. The idea that these are as well suited to a banquet hall as they are to your living room is quite possibly the funniest fucking thing I've heard in a while, and I'm not gonna lie, I do kind of live for the image of a better world where the only coasters you see in 5-star restaurants are these. I think I would like it better. Next up, the aptly named low-budget modern abstract artwork quote painting lettering art calligraphy, selling for $360 USD with $30 shipping. And while I understand why this is on here because that's obviously ridiculous, it reminds me a lot of one of the entries in my previous r/delusional artist video. An artist was paid a lot of money to create a bunch of art and delivered a bunch of blank canvases titled "Take the Money and Run." So if the artist's goal here is to provide a similar piece of commentary on the state of the art world, that's fucking hilarious and good on them. If not, I mean good on them anyway for openly saying through the art itself that they're 100% transparently selling something that probably cost them $30 for over triple that. As always, I can only aspire to achieve that level of boldness. Now, I'm gonna have to blur this next one a little because I don't know what kind of language YouTube actually lets me show visually, even if I'm not saying it out loud, but I'm sure you can see clearly enough what the top of this artisanal coffee table says in some very expertly painted graffiti. And while it's obviously a piece of art of its own merit just based on that, I feel like the context might be missing here. It's called artisanal coffee table and not like hand-painted artisanal coffee table or alternative graffiti artisanal coffee table. And it's only going for $40, all of which suggests to me that rather than sitting down and spray painting this table as a piece of intentional art, the seller actually just found or had the table like this and is basically selling it for scrap in case someone wants to paint it or sand it down. That would definitely explain why it was inexplicably saved by 103 shoppers because holy shit, like, yes, I would without hesitation buy this and send it to someone I hate, but I cannot imagine that 103 other actual living human beings either share my level of pettiness or just actually want to put this in their living room. Either way, I'm still so fucking curious. Like, even if that is the case, I am still desperate to know the circumstances that prompted its creation. Like, I'm personally partial to the idea that the seller just banged someone's wife or burnt down their crops or whatever the fuck else, and that person's response was to get back at them by inscribing this subtle, difficult to interpret message on their favorite table, and the seller's just trying to make back the loss rather than taking that as the artistic and aesthetic improvement that it is. This next one is much less absurd, but I love it anyway, because just so many people are rightfully calling Nintendo out for fat-shaming Pikachu and making him less chubby than he was in the early generations of Pokemon. And guys, this artist has taken matters into their own hands. And this isn't just classic chubby Pikachu, this is literal circle chonker of a Pikachu, and I would die for him. My sleep-deprived notes for this video summed up this whole section with just $6 not enough. And I stand by it, it's not. I love him. Next, we have some Bleach fan art. And I know I said we're not here to make fun of beginner artists doing their best, I don't actually know if that's what we're looking at here. I'm more inclined to believe that whoever made this is trolling, because from what I saw, it's not actually listed for sale or posted anywhere like the other posts in the sub, but is rather just a standalone image. And I genuinely believe that's the only explanation for this, because the eye, I cannot accept that the artist looked at that eye and thought, yes, that's correct. It looks like that scene in the thing where the dude's face, after he was replaced by the alien, just kind of cracks in half and falls a little bit. But Ichigo's went up instead, and he grew a third eye, but he didn't like it, so he just got rid of the pupil and not the eye, because that really would have been too much effort. And I don't know where his arms actually go, or what the thing I assumed to be a hand is even attached to. I don't know what's happening here. I did see one comment that said, if Picasso was an anime artist, though, and for real, if that was what the artist was going for and they weren't trolling, they nailed it, and I love it. Either way, Ichigo's 3 eyes can't be unburned from my mind now, and that's just something I have to live with, I guess. Next, we've got Clown Dog, and let me first start out by saying that the technical artistic skill in this piece is actually really good. It's just the subject matter that I find alarming. I am once again forced to return to the question, what in the ever-loving fuck inspired this? Why is he so sad? Who hurt him? Help him! Pay $500 and help him. Okay, fuck, yes, this one might just be my favorite. Let me introduce you to, and I quote, Disappointed Ramsey metal poster. I showed this one to my wife and her immediate response was just a very panicked, why? Why would they do that? And I cannot agree more. The painting itself is actually so good, but the face is just, it's so small. Why is it so small? It has to be a joke. There's no way it's not. Or at least an attempt to really drive home just how disappointed Gordon Ramsay really is here. Like, if I could give someone that expression with my actual face and have the ability to emphasize my distaste by just shrinking my face down by like 34% while making unyielding eye contact, I would be doing it constantly. And if that's the vibe they're trying to capture, they did it perfectly. Also, it's only $44, and based on the fact that it seems to be mass-produced through Displate, that means that it's just affordable enough for me to either send it to people who wrong me or buy one for myself to hold up over my face during conversations I don't care about. And I'm not considering it. Up next are these $300 custom Ugg boots with random pieces of denim glued onto them. I actually have mixed feelings about these because I love customized and resold clothing. I think it's super creative and fun, and I'm the last person who would shit on it without reason. But this is just, why? Did they look at 2001 Britney Spears and Justin Timberlake and think, nah, needs Uggs? Like, maybe I'm being too harsh on this one, but I'm equally harsh on those matching outfits, so it's a hill I'm okay with dying on. Okay, yeah, this one also, it has to be a joke, because it is literally selling for $49,832.98, which potentially only Elon Musk could actually afford. Or maybe that's just their target audience. He'd probably be arrogant enough. Regardless, it's beautiful, and the longer I look at it, the more I feel like he's judging me, so it's probably a very accurate depiction. Oh, fuck. Okay, when I said that Gordon Ramsay was my favorite, I think I spoke too soon. I completely forgot about McNug paint palette. This one isn't even my favorite, ironically. Like, look at the composition. Look at the deliberate artistic choices put into this one. This is not a butchered Cheerios box, people. This is actually art to some degree, even if the subject matter itself is unconventional. Like, I legitimately love this one, partially because it's clear that actual thought and intent went into it. I also love it partially because I am confident that it's trying to make a statement, and I cannot for the life of me tell what that statement is supposed to be. If the statement is that McNuggets are of their own merit good enough to be considered art, then this whole piece absolutely speaks to me and I am hearing what it's saying. I'd buy it out of agreement alone. Next up is an art book that legitimately makes Christopher Hart look like an artistic genius, and the fact that this went through the many stages of production and review necessary to get it published and no one stopped this from happening gives me hope for my future, because if this can get published, there's no fucking way I can't. I think it's the way the pupils are almost all facing different directions, combined with the fact that the eyes look like a viscous liquid that falls a little more off the girl's face with every passing second, that really just disturbs me on such a visceral level. But to limit it to just those two aspects is not doing the truly haunting nature of this art any favors. The fact that I emotionally identify so strongly with the shocked one is definitely not a compliment to it either. I know I am being a little mean here, but this shit hits different when it's literally made as an educational resource to teach young artists. Like, At least in my opinion, that kind of work should be held to a higher standard, and I don't think it's a stretch to say that this isn't meeting it. And speaking of things that should be way better by very nature of what they are, let's look at these designer shoes. And calling them shoes at all is generous, but I don't think that's what these are. I would be closer to calling them an abomination or an offense to God. And yet, an actual designer brand looked at the Green Giant, thought his shoes could be sexier, decided that making that happen was their calling, and sold them for $2,650. And I don't even know how to describe to you how that makes me feel. I'm a big enough person to admit that amongst all the abject horror is a little admiration, though. It's dwindling the longer I look at these, though, because the beans do not look good up close, and I'm more uncomfortable the closer I get. Oh, okay. Looking away from that is a gift in and of itself, even if it does mean looking at the next piece of designer fashion on my list instead, which is... Actually, I don't know what it is. Is this supposed to be an apron that you wear over something, or is it supposed to be a skirt or shorts? I don't know what option I'm hoping for, but I do know that I would absolutely wear it as either. If this was one person who had a really old Winnie the Pooh beach towel, some spare shoelaces, and a lot of creativity and spare time, I could understand how this came into existence. But this is from an actual designer selling it for $380 US, and you would think, based on that alone, there had to be an actual vision here. This wasn't the result of someone deciding to get imaginative with their old scrap material they found in their closet and make it into something rather than throwing it out. This was something someone envisioned, sought out the materials for on purpose and specifically, and then sold to a retailer as a luxury item. I'm not even shitting on it for that really, so much as it just appalls me. Like, upscale designers and retailers have been snatching up the entire culture of individual artists everywhere, thrifting and upcycling or customizing clothing for a long time, and putting a gigantic price tag on it in what is effectively like art gentrification. But this is just next level. I don't know, experimental fashion has always towed the line between being inventive and groundbreaking and genius, or being something that I would make with a pile of childhood towels, scrap cosplay materials, a bottle of wine, and too little sleep. And I think this is a perfect example of that. Ultimately, I think this comment, aptly formatted like the SpongeBob meme, sums it up pretty well. It's because you don't understand fashion. To stick with the theme of modern fashion, let's now take a moment to appreciate this jacket, which is the other side of the coin. We saw a designer's take on experimental fashion, now we have the DIY take on experimental fashion. And I'm more impressed with this one, quite frankly, because this really is experimental. Every part of the skirt apron thing was at least supposed to be clothing. This wild-ass motherfucker literally decided to glue or staple or somehow attach parts of an actual computer to a jacket and sell the resulting masterpiece for $900, which is just... creativity has gone too far. We finally reached a point where creativity has gone too far. It's so bold. Like, why? Why did someone think to combine these two materials? Was it like, step 1, steal your grandpa's jacket from 1862. Step 2, smash the ever-loving fuck out of your computer. Step 3, question mark. Step 4, profit. I don't know. I guess I just don't understand the delicate nuance of modern fashion. Our last entry into the fashion side of this subreddit, at least for now, is this bracelet. And honestly, I kind of like the aesthetic. I've always enjoyed the simple, minimal, metallic look, and especially on the bright monochromatic background and the modern web store, it actually does look like something Alexis Rose would consider purchasing, even if it looking nice in this format probably wouldn't translate to it looking good on a person. But good news, don't worry. If you also like this aesthetic, you can replicate it for $1 with your own safety pins from literally any store, with the added bonus of the like 80 other safety pins that will come with the 6 that you need for this. But who am I to shit on the €690 price tag? That's probably part of the reason Alexis Rose would buy it. Now, this next one, I don't even think it belongs on r/delusionalartists. Like, yes, this is literally a bedazzled tumbler that I obviously wouldn't pay $95 for, but look how many fucking gems are on it. Imagine how much time this took. This gives me flashbacks to 10-year-old me watching Unsolved Mysteries while gluing an entire kit's worth of tiny plastic gems onto everything I owned. And I did that shit for days on end, so I know this must have taken them at least $500 worth of time. Not that I'm saying they should up the price, but I'm confident that some 12-year-old in the year 2005 would absolutely be willing to beg their mom or dad for this. And that's a win in someone's book, I'm sure. Okay, now I saved the best for last with this one because while I have no comment on the quality of the art itself, one specific aspect of the medium used has kept me up at night ever since I was unfortunate enough to come across it. And it's not even immediately apparent when you look at the portraits head on. But thanks to this Redditor, that is not the only view we have available. They've blessed us with a close-up at an angle, which reveals the horrifying truth that the eyes are 3D. The artist glued marbles onto specifically the irises, making them the only textured 3D part of the entire pieces. And at least when Phoebe from Friends made her nightmare 3D paintings, the entire women were created to be coming out of the painting. And I took that for granted. I didn't even realize exactly how comforting that was compared to a painting where only the eyes are coming out of it, because this is just a special new level of disturbing. It's like those old paintings where they're done to give the illusion that the eyes are following you, but instead the eyes are a threat, and they're not just following you, they alone are on their way out of their paintings to kick your fucking ass. That said, I do have to agree with the person who commented, I feel like the move is to buy one, wait until you're house sitting, install this on the homeowner's wall, and then act totally clueless when they return from vacation, because that's a power move. It reminds me of the time that my grandma was house sitting and decided to empty her friend's house of furniture altogether and put a for sale sold sign outside just in time for them to get home. Like, obviously this isn't on her level of chaos, but it's up there and it's tempting. Anyway, that's all for today's video. I hope you enjoyed part 2 of my r/DelusionalArtists series, and please let me know in the comments if you're still interested in seeing more of these in the future. The sub doesn't update super often, so it won't be more than once every few months. But I do have a lot of fun with these, and if you guys are still having fun with them too, I'll definitely keep compiling more entries for future videos. Thanks for watching. Special thank you as always to channel members Cafe Soleil, Joseph Solomon, Unknown Code, and Abyss Reborn, as well as patrons Batman, Kyle Lowe, Blue Swanson, This Is Totally My Name, Unity, Cora Fear, and Jamisha Walker for their support. And I'll see you in my next one.